Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining in. We're going to get started here in just a few moments. We're going to kind of give people a second to kind of pile in. Thank you for joining them. So like I said, we should be able to get started here in just a couple moments. If you do have any questions ahead of time, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A so we can start getting some eyes on them. But if not, I can show you some stuff as well. So again, thank you for joining. I see people are still piling in. Keep on piling in. So like I said, we will get started here in just a few moments. Like I said, if you have questions, for those of you that are joining, feel free to put it in the chat or in the Q&A, and we can get some eyes started looking at them. So we'll kind of take questions in the order in which they come in. If no one has any questions and you're just here to learn, I have some things I can show you as well. So we'll probably get started here around 12:06. We'll give it about 2 more minutes. All right. Like I said, if you are still joining, we'll get started in about 60 seconds or so, right around 12:06 Eastern Standard Time. So if you do have any questions or you're just joining in, looks like we still have people kind of rolling in. Thank you for joining. Feel free to put a question in the chat or in the Q&A, and we can kind of address them in order. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in there. Otherwise, I will just show you some stuff. My name is Robert. Like I said, usually it's a little easier if we get some guided questions, but I do have some things I can show you that I think are maybe underutilized or misunderstood. I can kind of go through some of that stuff. Oh, we got one in the chat. We do have one in the chat, so we're kind of getting started there. We still have a couple people just piling in. So I know I said 12:06, but we'll give it about another 60 seconds. All right, so we still have people. We're going to get started here in about 30 seconds. I know I said 12:06, but we just still keep getting people popping in. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. All right, so we got more custom filters, even the text. All right, so we do have 2 pre-submitted questions. We will kind of just start working our way through it. Let's see here. 12:08 on my end. All right, great. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first question we have is from Andy. It's the question is, I have a Text. I don't have to push. Okay. So the question is, I have a bunch of delimited text files, some by comma, some by tab, etc. But the import Excel or CSV step doesn't guess and doesn't let me specify the CSV delimiter settings via select from flow, run converter, etc. What to do? Some by tab. Oh, I guess I should clarify in the above. Okay, so let's hop on over and see. Okay, so let's see. We got another couple of things popping up. Commas are a delimiter text that tells Excel there's a row of columns there. Okay, cool. So let's pop on over. The question is about delimited text files by comma, by tab, all of that. All right. So I do not have the highest level of expertise in that one. Let's see if anyone on the lobby.
Some by
Andy.
comma.
Yeah, I'll unmute Andy.
Sorry, I'm looking. Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Okay, hi. Yeah, I was waiting for the unmute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So the situation is that you know, we're trying to process a bunch of text files. The text files that come in could be different every day. They come in from various different sources. So for example, one might be the result of an export from Oracle, and those tend to be pipe delimited. And by the way, with a single quote as the quoting character. And I'm not sure your step even has any kind of spec or even knowledge of quoting characters. But that aside, the fact is that I've got a whole bunch of text files that come from different people, different systems, different sources. So in real life, some of them are going to be comma delimited, some of them are going to be semicolon delimited, some pipe delimited, some tab delimited. I don't think dot or tilde will be in the mix, but there's definitely going to be more than one delimiter character that I can count on. So what I want to be able to do is to loop through all the files and bring them in and import them. But I can only find out at runtime what the delimiter is going to be. Now, if you have a flow, if you could maybe just create a flow and just bring in that step, just so you can bring the properties pane into it.
All right.
And then just bring in the import Excel or CSV step.
So
Yeah, I think this is probably what.
Yeah. You need to type import Excel.
Okay, thank you.
That search needs a little work, by the way. It should have been able to find import Excel or CSV when you typed in import or CSV. But anyway, now so on the properties pane, if you can scroll it down a bit, the input data, it's assuming that it's a CSV, and you see CSV delimiter. Okay, there's no way on that. I mean, to select from flow, there's no such thing as auto select. There's nothing. I would like to be able to somehow or another specify it and run at runtime. And to that end, I actually created a flow which will take in the entire text body of a text file and scan through it and make a rather intelligent guess as to what the delimiter is. So what I would love to be able to do is to, and I made it a converter flow. So at this thing called CSV Delimiter, I would love to be able to select, run converter and then use my converter. so that I can guess at runtime in, imagine this import step within a for next loop where I'm looping through all the text files. I would love to be able to bring in the text file, guess the delimiter and say, okay, here it is. By default, it'll be a comma, but I've got a guess. But then use the character to split the to be able to import the
The data
file
from the
and
split,
put it
yeah.
where it needs to go. Yeah.
All right, gotcha. Yeah, but the step, I know, I was just talking with a companion of mine. I know there's no step that will allow that to be dynamic. What you would have to do is you would have to create some type of logic within the loop that can detect, right? There's some static ways we can do it, or some a little bit more dynamic ways. The static way you can do it is the string match step. That would allow you to allow the different delimiters, and then you can say, runtime selection, run this flow that has the import Excel CSV step set to semicolon delimiter or something of that effect. The other thing you could do is create your own truth table and do it that way. But that would be the only way to create some of a intuitive process that will dynamically select which delimiter to run.
Okay, wait a minute, can you click on that step again, the string match step? Because I haven't seen that. I was using, I was looping through in that flow I created. I looped through all the possible. Interesting. All right, I got to explore that a little bit. But what I did was I used index of text within text or something
Sure.
Oh, very nice. And then, by the way, I also had to have a converter flow and a truth table to convert a CSV separator type to the actual character,
Yep.
because I need the actual character to split a string. It would be nice to have a step that's called split string with CSV separator, as just as you have a split string with special character, tab
Sure.
or new line or whatever. It'd be good to have a step split string with CSV separator. But in any case, I have a truth table that converts, COMMA to an actual comma and DOT to a period, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I got to look at this string match. That's really nice.
Yep. Pretty cool step.
Yeah. I often find it hard to find steps like this because honestly, the search up there needs some work. I mean, you just saw, for example, you put in import CSV and nothing came up. All right, let me look at that. But yeah, I can see where you're going. My thinking is, though, that let's say I have a tab delimited file. Okay, but let's say a little birdie tells me that it's a tab delimited file, and and there are commas in it. So if I look for a comma in it, it's going to come out positive, and therefore it will try to separate it. Now, I suppose I could say, look for tabs first or look for commas last. So if it doesn't find any of the others, semicolon or whatever, then it will definitely find commas. The way that my flow works, just for your information, is that it reads in the file, it detects whether there's a character within the entire file, and then what it does is to split each line and tell me how many data points per line, and I put that in an array. And then if the average of the array equals the average number of data points throughout the file equals the first number of data points from the first line, that's an intelligent guess, and I return it.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I gotta look at this string match.
Yeah, definitely give this a shot. We're gonna move on to the next student because we got another question in the chat. But yeah, if we'll circle back to you if you have an additional question.
Well, unfortunately, I got to move, but I appreciate this. I'm going to look at the string match and see what's going on.
Awesome. You take care, Andy.
Sorry. Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Jared, for that. That was insightful on mine too. Great. Thank you guys, everybody. And if you are just joining, I know we've had some people just joining, feel free to put questions in the chat. We're going to kind of take them in the order in which they come in. And if you don't want to use the chat at the end, I'll kind of ask questions and you can raise your hand if you'd rather go that way, but it's nice to get some eyes on it a little earlier because we do have a couple people on this side of the line. So the next question is from Elon. It says, how do I create a custom filter for a report that allows users to select a field from a dropdown and enter a specified date range to filter the report by? So let's take a look and see if we can do some exploring. And I know I already have a quick report. I do have it set up for inline, but rather than building a fresh one, I guess we'll just go ahead and build a fresh one. Why not? I'm just going to use the account data source just because it's built in and it's easy. We're going to kind of start with the report and then see if we can figure out a quick way to get some filtering on there. So the account data source is built into decisions. It's just going to show you all of the account information that you have. So we'll do an email with a date range. Let's say I could create it on date as well as the email. We'll see if we can find ways to do a drop down or specify field from a drop down and specify a date range. Yeah, both will work. Email address. We'll do it here. Come on, buddy. There we go. All right. So we will then do some arranging here. Probably some grouping just for simplicity. We'll grouping created on date. And we're probably going to end up wanting to use, and Jerry, you can confirm, we're probably going to want to use a send data as a filter change on the created on date to filter accounts or reporting based on a date.
Could you unmute Elon? Could you give us some more context on this? Custom filter report, is it drop down? Is it specific date range, or are like you wanting some additional UI? Because there's a couple of ways we can go about this.
Yeah, so I'm trying to create a custom filter for a report using like a flow run part. So for example, if I have a report with a created on date column, modified date column, and higher date column, I want the user to be able to select one of those fields from the drop down and then enter a specified date range and then send those parameters to the report.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think we have a document over this. Let me send this to you. And then we can walk through a little bit of it. Yeah, essentially, we will be using the send filter change data source on that. And then we're gonna configure the filter for whatever that date you select. And we're gonna allow that to be updated by other reports. So go ahead and select a modified date filter for me. The modified date filter. So in filters, Robert.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, because we have to do a filter. And so what you would do with this filter is, right, you would have this, you would send that as the filter change source, and then you would have it be able to run that filter. So flow run part. Let me go ahead and find this real quick because there's flow run part. Haha. Hey, there, I found it. Hey, let me send you this document. Let's see. Pick run flow. I think this is exactly what you were looking for. Elon, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in here for you. That's gonna be for everyone. So if you look at it, there's a document on the flow run part. Just pick a, you can just pick any filter, Robert, it doesn't matter. So when you pick the filter, there's a specific thing that you'll need to make sure you configure on it, which is the part over right here, the runtime behavior. You want that to say like, hey, we got to get the values from other reports, and then set the send filter change data source as with some ID. So going back to the actual data field on it. And then when you configure those two things, then the flow run part will be able to have access to that if you want to do it from a drop down list format. That's one way. Yeah, that's one way. The other way you could do it is default in decisions is a date range filter that automatically has a kind of like drop down list format. I'll also send you a document over that as well.
Okay. See, the thing I was trying to do it with that, but the UI is really like hard to customize. So that's why I was trying to just build it.
Totally cool. Totally makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Yeah, the flow run part will definitely help you out with that way as well. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great. Thank you, Jared, again. We're all learning here today. We still have a couple more. We'll kind of keep working our way through them. Let's go with next one. My workflow. I'm required a long form that I'm requiring. So we're gonna have a save feature so that they can form and resume it later. That is a good question. So Ryan asked, I'll unmute it, but I think you were very articulate in your question, and that is something that I truly am not aware of. So in my workflow, I have a long form that I'm requiring a stakeholder to fill out. Is there a way to have a save feature such that they can exit the form but be able to resume it later? Maybe if there's something quick, maybe Jared could poke in, but my first guess would be that unless you hit submit, there's no way to save that data in decisions because it's going to be stuck on the form. Is that right, Jared?
Well, Ryan, can you just give us a little more context of like what's your process? Like is the data
Sure.
stored? Like is it pulling pre-existing data or is it like brand new data?
So it's the process is saving some scientific measurements onto a form, and imagine this form has a repeater that can be up to maybe 100 rows, three columns of data to fill on each row. Okay. And there is actually no data being pulled in at that point. Everything is ignored.
Okay.
And then and then is there a way to have a save feature? That way I can save it.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to understand the process. So basically, this isn't an assignment you're giving to someone, right?
This is an assignment I'm giving to somebody.
Oh, it's an assigned. Oh,
Yeah.
you're using decisions assignments?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Then it's already stored. So basically, if they don't work that and they close it, and let's say they close that assignment without completing it, then it will have that information. And then when they go back to that assignment, they can just do all that stuff, and then the assignment will be there. Now, your question is, let's say they do put in information, and you want to store that temporary information somewhere.
Yeah, let's just say like
Okay.
the whole assignment takes about say 2 hours to complete.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. So whatever data they put in, you want that to be stored. There's a couple of ways you could do this. You could create a data structure, like a temp data structure that stores data. So if we go like create data types and integration, you can use a database structure to store that data, and then whenever a form loads, you can have active form flow say, hey, filter by the current user with this assignment. Fetch, if there's any data, fetch that data and then pre-populate that information. So you can craft a database structure that way and store it there, which I think would be the better route. Another thing you could do is caching, but I'm not sure. I'm just not sure of the server specs. Anytime you're dealing with caching, you just got to be careful of it. But you can cache the data and put it in just your server, cache, and then after a certain time, they can come back to it, and it could populate the form. And you would use an active form flow the same way to fetch the data from a cache. There's a good document over that. Let me fetch that. But I think I would recommend the database structure first. And could you put your email also in the chat? Because I'll talk with some people internally about this to make sure that there isn't another use case that we could do.
So I did make a use case up and it was working for a little bit, which is, so imagine there is there's a submit button to when you're completing the assignment, and then in addition to that, I have a button called save and exit. And what save and exit simply does is take all that information. It doesn't put it into a database, but it just transfers it back to the beginning of the assignment, such that it basically makes a new assignment. But the rows that they've already filled would be filled. They've already filled would transfer over to the beginning of the assignment, right? So it's almost like we load a new assignment, and they have the rows they've already filled out. And that was working, except another thing we ran into is that we can't, we wanted those cells or those fields to be blank as opposed to its numbers are filling out in that form.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted those fields to be blank instead of having default zeros. Default zeros are okay because there's gotta be some value that's there, so that if we make the save and exit button required, then this whole flow works. But if it's blank, then I'm blocked in such that I can't seem to make the save and exit work and have a blank cell. I know it's quite a bit of information there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and are you doing with your data structure? I'm assuming it's all using a data structure and that's preventing you from saving it, or is it another?
Yeah, it is using a data structure because I mean I do need to find a data structure in order for the
Okay.
repeater to work because it's the form is literally just n number of rows of the repeater.
Sure.
And each row is
gotcha.
is a database structure.
Yeah, Robert, if you could just type a value, like make this type in a variable and make it and type a number and change it to an integer. There is this thing on data members that allow you to say allow null. So if you're using a flow structure or whatever data type you're using, you can enable allow null on that, and then that will allow you through your entire process, at least in that specific section, to be able to store a blank value, so that you don't have to be forced to having zeros. And then on your form outcomes, if you can just open up a form real quick, Robert. On the form itself, you also need to set them as like optional or non-required values.
Okay.
Because the form will like stop you, and we'll show that real quick. I just pull up another tab while this loads. Oh, look, it's already finished. Yeah, so in here, if we drag a text box and a button to the canvas or to the grid here, you'll notice that if we go to the outcome scenarios on that text box, it says required.
Yep.
If we switch that to optional, then you don't have to have a value in that. So that would be like the two places you'd have to update.
Yeah,
and also go ahead.
Okay. I did do the optional one for some reason. So if the button is optional, does it still have the ability to transfer data out of the form if I press that if I press that button? Does that make sense? Like so.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, what it's saying is it's just that it's not the form won't stop. Like it's not a validation. Like if we left it as required, if we put this in a flow and ran it, what would happen is that the process would throw a validation, right?
Okay.
We'd have to actually run this in a flow to actually show that out because preview won't give us that detail. But
Okay.
But that's the difference. Required, it will stop the form experience, won't let you continue. And then optional says, hey, if you have data, we'll output it. If you don't, no worries.
Okay.
It'll just be blank. So that's the second thing you have to update. And then the third one was on your data repeater.
Yep.
On the repeater itself, it would also like you have to say allow null for that property as well on there. So
Oh, okay. I think that third one is where it's not happening. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I think I've designed a couple things where I needed to have that, and so you just have to make sure that those three areas, and once you do those three areas, then you should be good.
Okay.
So
Cool.
awesome, but yeah, but I'll still, like I said, I'll still talk around because I'm curious if there's other types of and I think I misspoke. I didn't mean use case. I meant like other types of ways we can handle this issue because it definitely you do want to save the data.
Okay.
I'm just curious if there's other ones besides just creating another data structure to store it or a cache.
Okay.
And I'll email you what I find.
Okay. So actually, where's the button for the null on the repeater? Is there a section for that?
Yeah, go ahead and click a type, or
Oh,
go to the
yeah.
repeater. Yeah, you have to click on the repeater control. Go ahead and pick the
Sure.
accounts type. No, you have to go inside the repeater. So edit the repeater like you did, and then go ahead and properties. You have to pick the properties to the right, and then pick the input type of just account. And then go ahead and add a text box to it. And go ahead and pick from data. Expand, just grab email address.
Mhm.
And we do that, go ahead, expand view and behavior for me. Where is it? I know it was here. I saw it.
right here, outcome scenarios.
Yeah, that would, you'd want that as optional as well. There was a specific, I gotta look back at it. Let me take that offline and look. I know it's somewhere. Actually, do
Actually,
you mind if I share? Go ahead.
yeah, I'm curious how
Yeah.
there is actually a completed outcome scenario when there isn't a button. Is that just connects to the form that the repeater is based in?
Yeah, because by default, whenever you're using a data repeater, it's going to assume you're going to put, you can't use the data repeater independent of a form. So that's why
Hmm.
it's saying, hey, do you want that repeater validation to
Oh.
be optional
Okay.
to where you don't have to have data in the data repeater. It could just, it may
Okay.
or may not.
Okay.
But yeah, let's create a form, create a data repeater, not a data type. I'm just curious. I remember seeing this a while back. It's gonna say find validation thing. And say it's good properties, overarching. Restrict override validation settings. That's legacy. Count. And let's try text box. You know what type of controls you're using? Because I think I may have known what I was thinking. I think if I use a number box.
It's it's a number box.
Perfect. I think this is what I was thinking.
Yeah, there you go. I see a now null value at the bottom. I'm not sure.
Thank
That's
you. Perfect. Okay, yeah. I think I got confused. It's tied, yeah, it's tied to the specific control. So if you're using a number box and you want to
Okay.
allow null, you just have to make sure that that's checked and then you'll be good to go.
Okay, cool. All right, I think I have enough to see if this all works then. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ron.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Any
So-
other questions?
Do we have any more questions in the chat? Feel free to, BT raised their hand.
We also have one from Darren Law too. I have an
where-
Excel template.
Okay.
So I have an Excel
Sorry.
template with list amounts in a single cell, such as USD, GBR, Euro. How do I map this data into a data form where I have a text box for currency and number box for amount? Oh, that's a great question. Hey, we're about talk about data repeaters. Let's talk about data repeaters, people. All right. So I'm going to go to documentation and let me send you some documents over data repeaters, and then I'll walk through creating that similar scenario that you created. So let's see, data repeaters. This one. Let's go ahead and click here. Go back to my chat, everyone. There we go. So there's data repeaters. And so now let's talk about this. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll build this out together. Let me go ahead and remove some of my tabs so I don't get confused where I'm at. Close this one, close this. All right, so I got my data repeater right here. And let's say I have, I'm just going to create a flow structure just to illustrate this. All right, if you're getting it from a Excel file, you'll probably have something like this because you can create data types from Excel. And so what I can do is I can say, hey, this is my currency, currency thingy. And I'll call this would be, currency type. And this would be, let me just say currency type because it's going to confuse me if I just call it type. And then we'll say this is the amount, right? Let's say it's those two things, right? And this is a decimal. So the difficulty here is you can't have multiple currencies for a single decisions instance. And what I mean by that is like I'm logged in, my localization is set to US. So I see everything in United States dollars. If I created another time zone for a different account, let's say it's for one of the India team members, what I can do here with that is I can change the localization to India, and then I would see everything in Indian rupees, and I'd have the Indian rupee currency icon as well. The difficulty with this, since like I said, the localization is only on one thing at a time, and so a way you could do this, like I said, is create a simple flow structure, currency type, and then the name of the thing that you're trying to get out of it. And then when I create my flow, or let me first create my data repeater, we're going to use this one. And then what I would do is over my text box, I can probably say, let me go ahead. This would be the value that I'll get. I have to change this input. from the account, this is going to be my currency thingy. Perfect. And then one thing you have to know about data repeaters, you can't use data names here. It will say that's not valid. It will yell at you. You must reference the actual property on the actual data type. So I got to pick from data format. I got my currency type, which is the string. Now it goes away. And then I have my from data name, I expand this, and then I go to currency type, or not currency type, amount, which should allow that to go away. Perfect. So now we have that set up. I can also mess with the columns to make this more fitting. So 0.3, because I don't need a lot for the currency icon. I may have to. I think I'm gonna go online to find. Oops. Currency text. Yay! This works. Okay. I'm gonna save this. Close this. And I'm going to add a flow, and this is going to be test currency, multi-currency display. And then now, I don't think I created a form. Let me create a quick form to be able to demonstrate this out. Pick, create, display currency stuff, as we'll call it. I know my names are not that creative. And we'll say this is done. All right, and then let's say, what am I doing? Oh, data repeater. That's what I'm looking for. Data repeater. Boom, boom, boom. We're gonna add this here. I'm just gonna pick the source. Recent validation. We got that. Yep, not the most design thing. We'll say this is the currency information data. And then once I do that, add this. I get a list of currency options, right, that I can pass in. So let's say this input takes in a list of those things. So list of currency. And that's it, currency thing or something. Come on, I know it's there. Nope. All right, you're gonna be difficult for me. All right, we'll go to recent. User defined types. We'll go to flow data structures. Currency thing. There we go. All right, so now I have this. I got to make sure it's is list. And then let's say I'm passing in data that I want to display here, right? So I'm going to debug this. Imagine like we're already past the process where you looped in through the Excel, and now we're at the process where we have to put it into the data repeater, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, this is $10,000, and the currency type's going to be USD. So I'm going to put OK. Let's say that I have, so that's the first one. I have another one that came from the file. Let's say it's in euros. So I'm going to put that in the euro thing right here. And the amount, let's say it's, 50,000 euros. Let's say we have the British pound, right? So I have another one, currency type, and then we'll say this is, 5,000, right? 6,000, put that in here. And so now what will happen is, since I have this, I'm actually going to save this as a unit test so I don't have to redefine this and be like, test my data. Save. And then now what I can do is I can start debugging. And because I didn't map it in like a silly person, that's why it didn't display in my form. I always forget that every time. Select from flow, grab it. Now, if I debug, and because I saved test my data, I don't have to put in all that information. And then boom, you will see that I have my currency and the actual, amount of money it is. So I can know this is, USDs, this is euros, this is British pounds, and then the value tied to it. So that's how you could do that and map that into a repeater by just having a flow structure that has a string text for the signature or the sign there. That's how to answer it. Darren, I'm going to allow you to talk just in case if you have like additional questions or clarifications about this, but this is how we'd handle it.
No, that is pretty much what I was looking for. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. I can export this project to you so you have that and you can play around with it so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Help. Thanks.
Awesome, my pleasure. Yeah. Let me just rename this and change the project association because it's a little off. So this is going to be currency data repeater. And let me go ahead. Let's see, remove from project. Yes, I want to remove it. Remove everything from it. And then we're going to add to a project, and we'll call this the currency project. For
Oh,
Darren.
actually, to add on to that, would
Mhm.
a similar concept apply for, say, if I have like percentages instead of a currency amount? So like, you know, A 5%, B 10%, and so
Sure.
on.
Of like a certain currency value? Like you still want the same currency value, but display the number as a percentage?
Kind of, yeah. It's a different data point, but the whole mapping into the data repeater is still an issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
So like I basically just want one field where I have like, you know, A, B, and C, and then like I want a number box, I guess a decimal, which will show me like the percentages of each of those portions.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. You can definitely do that. It's just adding another property. So if I go back here, you can add another field. You can make this as big as you want. You could just add another property to, you know, have that as a percentage.
Okay.
Yeah, it's yeah, definitely could.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, I'm gonna export this, put your email in the chat, and I will send this to you. And then you can, yeah, test it and do what you need to do. All right, webinar chat. Yeah. Did you post your email in the chat, Darren?
Oh, 1 second.
Sure, sure. Perfect. Love it. All right, so now downloads, currency project. Darren, oops, I cannot spell today. I still can't spell. Oh, I don't know why I'm doing this. I could just copy. This is why I had you do that. Boom. Project. And there you go, my friend. It is on its way. Boom. Alrighty. Just sent it. So you might have to keep refreshing. It'll be traversing the world, going to your location. All right. With that being said, any other questions for today for the lunch and learn? All right. I don't see any other questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for attending the Lunch and Learn. We'll end it and we'll post the recording up online so you guys can rewatch it and review it at your leisure. So hope you have a great day and thank you so much for attending, and we'll restart our Lunch and Learns next week.
Thank you.